Buon pomeriggio a tutti, bentornati, spero che vi sia piaciuto il pranzo. Adesso parlerò in inglese perché il prossimo intervento sarà appunto in inglese. And I'm gonna switch to English. I hope you had a great lunch and you enjoyed lunch. The menu was not the menu was not drafted by chance. It was drafted with a purpose, and the purpose was to let the floor to Peter Klosse and Jan Kees Klosse, who are with us today, and to introduce you to what they do. Peter is the founder and president of Taste Academy, the Academy for Scientific Taste Evaluation. And their work is amazing. They're trying to redefine the concept of taste and to try to understand how to use taste as a tool to regenerate the agri-food chain and to use taste as an indicator of quality. Thank you, Peter, for being here. I'm going to leave the floor to you. It's going to be an amazing, inspirational talk, I believe, as I know you. And please welcome.
Thank you, Alessio. Well, it's a great pleasure to be here. I've had the pleasure to be with Future Foods and with Sarah for already, well, years and years and years and years. So it's always fun and it's always good, but also I really appreciate all the activities, of course, that are happening. And one of those beautiful experiences was yesterday. Not everybody was there, but yesterday we were at the Petrosa farm, and it's really a beautiful example of what I believe we should do, but also what TASTE stands for. So I'm just going to have a small talk about that. Yeah, closer? Yes. Closer, good. I'm just, for those who missed it, just to say a little bit about that, because it's really, I think, very important to understand, and I also, of course, elucidate a little bit what TASTE is about. First, the Petrosa farm. At a certain moment, I had the urge to ask Edmondo, why did you change to regenerative agriculture? And the answer was very clear and also very, I think, we could learn from that. And that was, well, my father had this farm and I took it over, and it was a conventional farm and it is input agriculture, and we had to put more in every year, so it became more and more marginal. And then at a certain moment I didn't see a big future. And therefore, I thought, well, we should rethink this farm. We should rethink what we are doing. And then he took some courses, and he started to think around regenerative agriculture, and ultimately he created, let's say, a new balance between what he needed in his farm and what also I think we ultimately need, because now he is a lot resource-free. He creates his own resources for his animals and for his bread and his cereal. So it's a really nice ecosystem with a diversity of products that are also really tasty. And that brings me, of course, to the tasty part of it. For one, we had this lunch, and just as this afternoon, the Italians always, well, they always surprise me. You think you're done with eating, and then suddenly there is more. So yesterday we had a wonderful entree, and then there was cheese, and I thought, well, okay, we had cheese, now we get coffee or something. But then we got a new dish, and then afterwards a new dish, so it kept on going. And one of those dishes was a kind of an omelette, and it had peas in it. And these peas were sensational, because they were so sweet and so rich that I started thinking, well, if those peas would be given to children, they would think it is a dessert. And they, of course, they would love their vegetables. And that is, I think, one of the things where taste steps in. So for me, taste is something that we have always found very important. I was born in a restaurant. Jan Kees, my son here, was born also in the same restaurant. So it's now 3 generations of gastronomic people. And we are being brought up with taste and with thinking around food. And of course, thinking also at the table, having people at a table that should, of course, be very happy with the food that we serve. And when I took it over, I first got very much intrigued by wine and food pairing. So I started to learn about how wine and food pairing works, and that gave me some insights on we need to think differently. And ultimately, that gave a new insight on the composition of taste, start thinking differently on taste, and then also, well, I did my PhD on it, and then I became a professor and then all that. But my passion around taste never changed. And the more we see examples of farms like yesterday, and the more we are conscious about what's happening in conventional agriculture, the more I get convinced that taste is really the overlooked subject. Because things went wrong when we start seeing foods as commodities. So we started growing more and more and more, creating volume, creating quantity. But by creating volume and quantity, by selecting varietals that produce a lot, and by also choosing for agricultural systems that are just input systems and stimulate growth, but not really nutrients, then you come to the conclusion that we really need to rethink all this. And taste is then very important. I just mentioned the example of the peas. And for us, taste starts with components. For many people, taste is something subjective. It's your personal opinion. But what I try to do in my scientific work is make the distinction between taste as being a product quality and tasting as what people do. As soon as you start doing that, then you see the same thing with, for instance, light and color. There's frequency and there's intensity, and there's our perception of the sound or the color. So what we did with a lot of our senses, at least with sight and hearing, I think we should also do with taste. There's taste as a product quality. So, of course, it's not frequency, but for me that's mouthfeel. Mouthfeel and intensity we could use as a paradigm, as a way of looking at taste. That gives you an objective view on what taste is. And then people do the tasting. And people have culture, and people have receptors, and people have learned about taste, and people have habits and things like that. So making the distinction always also allows to make the, let's say, the connection between what products have and what people want, prefer, or whatever. So that also allows to make the distinction between objective and subjective. And for me, tasty is in the middle. Tasty is what products have, so the objective side, and what people want. So in our work, for instance, with taste, we did, as one example, we did a beer study. And this beer study, we analyzed beers, we classify beers on their taste composition. So where we create 12, let's say, groups of beers that have similar characteristics. And then we have an app. I hold my phone here, but we have an app. And in this app, you ask questions on people on their preference. And then you are able to give a suggestion. Okay, this is the type of taste you prefer. These are beers that fit your preference, which makes it a lot easier to make those decisions. Now we're probably going to do similar projects with tomatoes, etc., because it's the same thing. You can see red tomatoes or another color of tomatoes in the shop, but how do you know which one fits to you? So those are projects that we could do. Going back to how taste is a part of the transformation that we need, how is taste a part in the regeneration of agriculture? Well, I also started to say taste is neglected, has been neglected. We looked for quantity, we looked for varietals that produce a lot, and we forgot that products, tomatoes, breads, cereals, milk, also have nutrients. And we just neglected that. Think about strawberries. You have these strawberries that you buy in a shop. You get them at home. They're, of course, tasteless. So what's the first thing you do? You take sugar. And that's exactly, I think, the way we have started to treat our foods. We create tasteless stuff, and then we need additives of all sorts to reintroduce taste, what was lost in agriculture. So going back to the real stuff also means going back to what it really has, and that would avoid, ultimately, to add all kinds of nutrients. So if the nutrients are in the product itself. And thinking around nutrients, of course, it's also striking if you look at articles on taste and production and things like that. It's always measured in calories. If you talk about feeding people, it's about calories. Well, there's one thing about calories. If you were to have a large liter bottle of Coca-Cola, it's about 700 calories. So 3 liter bottles of Coca-Cola would be good for you, right? 2,100 calories. Good for you. So it is silly to think about calories. We should feed the world with nutrients, not with calories. And I believe that is where all taste is in. Taste is about quality. Taste is about nutrients. Taste is about what products really have. Taste is what feeds us. So reintroducing taste, rethink agricultural practices to have tasty foods is, I believe, a crucial, not just a side thing, but a crucial thing of food systems transformation, of rethinking food systems, of rethinking agricultural practices, of rethinking the introduction of varietals and all that. Because ultimately, that's where it ends. You have products with quality, people with their choices, people prepare, people buy, people consume, people love. So the combination between what people want and also reintroducing real foods to people that make real choices is also, I think, very important for this future that we want. And we call this the CAT approach. And the CAT approach is the foods that we eat currently are convenient. You can buy them everywhere. They are very, even too, affordable. So you can easily buy them, everybody can afford them. Unfortunately, a little bit too much. And they are tasty, which is sad to say, but they are tasty because people love the foods that they buy. And again, what we need to include in thinking around food systems change is the new foods, the better foods, the foods that are better for people and, if you want, planet, also need to be CAT. They need to be just as convenient, affordable, and tasty as the ones we are asking people to give up. So the narrative around foods and changing food habits is also very important, because currently we're going to say, eat more fish, eat less meat, eat less fat. But that isn't seductive, that isn't helping. How? So culinarians, chefs, people that know food, people that understand food, people that can relate to food, can connect people back to food, because there's, of course, this big, huge disconnection between what we produce and what we eat. So the reconnection of people and foods is a very important aspect, and that requires language and requires examples. So I believe that chefs, culinarians, I'd rather call them, have a very important role in this food systems transformation idea, because they can show the example. So to end this, I really think that conferences and meetings like this are very important to also share that idea. But we also are going to organize a course in probably the end of September. We're going to have, together with Future Food, a taste food boot camp. And then we, for instance, go immediately to Petrosa again, because that is the example, and then have chefs learn from that. How do you cook? How do you work with seasons? How do you work with products that are often wasted? So these are all projects and thoughts and things that we would like to do, and with taste would like to contribute to what is important, this regeneration of agriculture, but regeneration of our life, basically, because that's what we, I think, need to do. So thank you. That's what taste is. And that's what I think why it's important.
Thank you.